Welcome back to KneeToKnee. I'm your host, Mark Marrott. And today we've got a conversation that a lot of you guys have been waiting for, whether you know it or not. My guest today is Stretch. Yeah, his real name's Andrew Rayner, but pretty much no one calls him that, not even his family. He goes by Stretch. He grew up in rural Australia, made a detour to work in the corporate world, and then ran a gym in London with over 300 members until he just burned himself right out. And then he rebuilt himself from the inside out using blood work, DNA genetic testing, and the whole lot of curiosity about what was actually happening inside his body. Today, he works as a personal trainer and health coach, mainly with men in the middle, and he's the guy behind the Midlife Mavericks and the sustainable training method. We talk about why healthy food was making him sick, how mercury toxicity nearly wrecked him, and why picking up weights might be the gateway habit that changes everything else in your life. If this one hits home to you, please make sure you hit like and definitely subscribe so you don't miss any of the conversations we have upcoming. All right, so let's get knee to knee with Stretch. Welcome everyone back to Knee to Knee. As we mentioned earlier, as always, I'm very excited about who we have today. We've got an amazing guy. You know what? His name's Andrew, and I just call him Stretch. And I want to hear how you got the nickname, right? But Andrew is somebody who's done some amazing things. And when I got to do some research ahead of time, before Andrew and I spoke, before I did a pre-podcast call, and then right before we started recording, he's got some pretty amazing things. And so what I'd love to do, Andrew, or Stretch, is tell us how you got the nickname Stretch, first of all, because that's a nickname I gave my brother only because he grew a whole lot while I was gone for a couple of years. It's one of those things. Curious how you got it. And then I'd love to hear a little bit about tell us your story when it comes to the progress of how you ended up where you're at today and what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure, Mark. As a personal trainer and health coach now, particularly with men's health, a lot of people think Stretch comes from, are you really flexible? And I've been working on my flexibility, but that's not where the name came from. I've had Stretch since I was about 5 years old, and I started school early, and I was probably the littlest kid in the school. And good old Aussie humor, all the guys thought that I needed to be stretched.
Love it.
Stretch was the nickname. Yeah, that's it. And it's followed me since that time. My parents call me Stretch, all my mates call me Stretch. Some people just don't even know my real name is Andrew. I think the only people that called me Andrew were my grandparents. And I grew up in rural Australia, and my grandparents owned a dairy farm. So I spent a lot of time on the dairy farm with those guys growing up as a kid. Yeah, I did the typical thing, go to school, go to university, get a degree, get a good job. I actually studied computer science. But when I got into the corporate world, it really wasn't for me. I'd leave work each day thinking, like, what am I doing? I'm helping a company grow more shares or earn more money, feeling pretty dissatisfied with that. And also just looking around the office at the stress, the unhealthy people, and thinking, is this going to be me in the next 10 years or 20 years if I stick at this career?
Yeah.
So that's what sort of led me to change careers. I stepped out and became a personal trainer and thought, hey, what have I got to lose? I can take this for 12 months, see if I love it. And if not, I can go back into a corporate job, no stress at all. But I didn't look back after that. It went from being a personal trainer, working at a big gym facility, to working in a private studio, running my own PT business, to then owning a gym. This was in London at the time. I was over there for 10 years, owning a gym and pinching myself every day thinking, this is a dream job. I get to wake up every day. I get to train people in the gym. These people want to be here. They want to hang out. It's a good, positive environment. And, I'm having an impact on a lot of people's lives. We had a gym with over 300 members, running lots of classes, doing lots of one-to-one PT, employing staff, just absolutely loving it. But although I was passionate about it, and although it was a dream job, and although I was pinching myself every morning, I pushed myself to burnout. So working hard, training hard, doing everything, I probably shouldn't be doing to run this business because I was so passionate about it, just having a negative impact on my health, like just coming down on me pretty hard. And I stuck at it for 5 years thinking that I'd get to the point where, I could take the foot off the gas and it would start to take care of itself. But there were a lot of things happening within the business. And it got to a point where I just couldn't keep going. I was leaving, London, a big polluted city, lots of noise, working the job that I love, but just burning myself into the ground. And at that point, I decided I had enough and it was time to, get back to Australia, get back to a better environment, start to prioritize my health, practice more what I was preaching.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to do a big reset. I got back to Australia and my health was the worst it had ever been. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't sleep properly. There was anxiety. There was a bit of chest pain. There was a lot of things going on. And I was just like, how can this be? Here I am practicing health and fitness or telling people about health and fitness. And yet my own health is suffering.
Yeah.
So I
I've
started.
been there. I've been there, Stretch, myself. So I totally get that.
Yeah, exactly, Mark. So, and I think a lot of guys do, we can go through that point and we can choose to ignore that and push through it, which I feel often men do. And I probably did that myself for a number of years before I took action. But then when I took action and I went and saw a functional medicine practitioner, did a deep dive on blood work, started to learn a lot more about it, did a health coaching course with a guy called Chris Kreza based in the US, just learning a lot more about health outside of the fitness industry, outside
Right.
of getting to the gym, lifting weights, counting calories. And that's when my mind was blown. Like looking at that work and understanding the impact that our genetics have, that our blood work has, just really opened my eyes. And I found out I had high histamine levels, I had high iron, I've got hemochromatosis, which means I store iron, I had high mercury levels, I have bad detoxification. All these things started to fall into place. And with the right diet and with the right supplementation, with saunas to help sweat out mercury and a whole heap of other things, within about 6 weeks, my health went from terrible to really good again. And then from that point onwards, I've been able to understand my health and
Right.
individualize my lifestyle to give me the ability to do the things that I want to do. And that's when the penny dropped for me, thinking that, a lot of men are struggling, especially in midlife, because I think that's a turning point in our life where we start to wake up and start to think about our health a lot more, but just not knowing where to go and hearing all this information all the time, this overloaded information, but just not knowing who to trust and what they should be focusing on. And it's very individualized. There is no one diet, no one training plan, no one lifestyle that works for everyone. And we've got to be able to navigate that. And unfortunately, that really has to come back to the individual, yourself, and you have to step up and take responsibility and show leadership. So that's what I'm sort of working on now, helping men step into that role. I like to call it the role of the king, where you show better leadership and you are responsible for your choices and the actions that come.
Yeah, we've had, and you mentioned, it's individualized. I've had so many conversations with different people because my first schooling was all exercise sport science. And I became a
Mm.
strength and conditioning coach and work. I mean, I don't know how many gajillion hours I've spent lifting weights in the gym in my life. Right. And I joke now, while I'm a shape right now, I'm not in shape. I'm
Mm.
not, I'm not like I was 10, 15 years ago, but and I've had these conversations with people. Well, they'll come to me and say, what's the best diet? There's so many conflicting things out there. How does this
Mm.
work? And I've preached the same thing that you're talking about. Everybody is so different. I know one guy that the carnivore fits so well for him, and his body reacts super, super well. Then I talk to somebody else and they go, oh, I tried that and it was a horrible thing. It didn't work. And so you start going, okay, you've got to figure out how your body functions and it works best for itself individually.
Yeah, there's that big part. I agree with your body. Like you've got to understand what works well for you and what doesn't. For instance, like for myself, high histamine. You think, okay, like tomatoes, they're a healthy food. Yeah, great. But they're also very high in histamine, especially if you cook them. So for me, eating cooked tomatoes just sets me off. It'll set off my gut. I'll have diarrhea and my gut health won't be great. So if I avoid tomatoes, I'm fine. Slow cooked meats and bone broth and sauerkraut, they're all seen as really great nutrient dense foods, and they are. But again, they can all be high in histamine. And if you're taking
Interesting.
in too much histamine and you've got a histamine intolerance, well, then that's just going to set off your gut. And your gut is critical to your overall health. So it's like if we look after the gut, then it's going to have huge impacts on our sleep and our energy and our mood and everything
Right.
downstream from absorbing that nutrients. So although these are healthy foods, there's nothing wrong with these foods. For an individual with histamine intolerance, well, they're not going to be the best foods. So understanding these things and getting a perspective of, maybe underlying health conditions or genetics you've got is going to have an impact there massively on the diet that you should choose to eat. And then we've got to fit it into lifestyle too. So if you're a busy dad of two and you've got a busy career and you've got all these things going on, to do a heap of food prep's probably not going to be something that's sustainable for you. So what can we do? What are the small things that are going to deliver the biggest wins? What's the low hanging fruit for you around nutrition or around training or around your recovery that you can somewhere squeeze into your busy week?
Okay. So did you said earlier you went in and did a bunch of blood work and things like that. Did you do just blood work to find out those things, or how does a guy go figure out? Do I have to do blood work and DNA testing to find out if I'm genetic? What did you do, and what would someone, if they were struggling like you were experiencing, what are some of the
Mm.
steps that you would recommend someone do to find those things out?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. And that's something I work with a lot of guys. Guys, we aren't that great at going to the doctor. Let's be honest. Things have to be getting pretty bad for us to go, yeah, I better go to the doctor and get myself
Doctor,
checked out.
dentist.
Yeah,
You said
any
anything
of those
medical.
things.
Why do I want to go?
Exactly. But it's that thing of let's be proactive. Why wait until the heart attack? Why wait until we're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes? Why wait until we start losing the car keys and Alzheimer's starts kicking in? We have the ability to go and do our blood work or to start looking under the bonnet and getting awareness right now of potential issues that could come up in the future. And if we get on top of those now before they become an issue, then that's going to improve our health and longevity going into the future and our
Right.
energy and our mood and everything right now. And it's easier to get on top of these things before they become a really serious health crisis. Once it's a crisis, it's a lot harder to reverse than it is to get on top of. So I encourage men to go and do their blood work yearly. Go and get on top of your health now. Be proactive. Don't be the guy that waits, because you have this amazing opportunity, especially in our modern society today, to go and do these tests. Initially, the outlay is quite expensive. You could spend $600,000 more on tests. But the good thing is it gets cheaper from year to year, because first off, you want to go and get as much blood work done as you can, looking at it as much in depth as you can. Now, this will
Okay.
give you a sense of direction. Hey, tick, 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 all these things are great. But right now, hey, your testosterone's
These
on the
areas,
decline.
these areas
Yeah,
we got to watch. Yeah.
yeah. There's certain areas, okay, you're vitamin D deficient. Okay, you've got high heavy metals in your body, whatever it is that you're going to put your finger on. And then in the future years, it's like, well, you don't have to go and do the whole lot again. Just go and check those things that weren't in alignment. Do changes. What changes in your life are going to have an impact on these things that are heading in the bad direction right now? Get more sunshine, use a sauna, eat better food that contain better nutrients. Might make those modifications a year later, retest. Are things the same? Are they better or are they worse? And then obviously make lifestyle changes that are going to help that. Every now and again, you might go back and do the whole suite of tests, or you might just throw in a couple and retest a few and see where you're at. But staying on top of this can have a huge impact. For me, it was a baseline set of bloods, seeing that certain hormones were not where they needed to be, and then seeing the chronic fatigue. My adrenals were fried, and then it was like, it's still investigative work. Why is the question? Because you see it and you
Right.
can go, okay, I can take all these supplements that might help my adrenals or might help me with my mercury toxicity or whatever it is, but why is that happening in the first place? What is the fatigue? Okay, work, the stress, everything I was going through was having a huge impact, and my lifestyle was changing coming back to Australia. But that just led me to, okay, there are certain things that my body's not doing properly. The genetics test allowed me to figure out my genetics, which led to something called MTHFR. They call it the motherfucker gene, but it's our detoxification pathways. And once that genetics came in, we hadn't tested heavy metals, but once that came in, it's like, actually, you're a bad detoxifier. Let's have a look at your heavy metals just to be sure and see what's happening. And that's when mercury was really high for me. And we shouldn't have any mercury in our system at all. So that was the big thing that was impacting me. But no amount of training, my nutrition, no supplement was going to really help me drop that mercury. The sauna was what I needed to be doing. And the sauna regularly allowed me to get that out of my system. But I would never have known that if I hadn't actually done the deep dive into the blood work and stayed curious, because level 1 didn't get me there. Level 2 hinted to where I should go. And it wasn't until I got to the third stage that we went, aha, this is a big thing we need to address right now.
Were you ever able to find out? You mentioned that, what's the why behind it? How did I get here? What were the
Mm,
things that got your mercury levels too high? Or and you mentioned histamines that you figured out tomatoes and some of those other things that did it. Were you
yeah,
able to
yeah.
ever able to figure out the why into some of those areas?
Yeah, so for each thing, there's certain things that pop up. So histamine is just, yeah, I've got a histamine intolerance, and something a lot of people do. It's a big part of our population. So certain foods I couldn't eat. That came up in the initial blood work. Okay, look, here's your histamines. They're really high. Yep, chances are you've got histamine intolerance. Let's change the diet. That made a big impact. High iron levels. So the iron studies came back. My iron was off the scale. Okay, let's just go and test if you've got hemochromatosis, which means I metabolize iron and I hold more than a normal person. So you might take iron
Right.
in your diet, but certain amounts are going to pass through. For me, I hold it. Okay, so keeping iron in the system. If I go and donate blood a few times a year, that brings my iron down. So I just go and donate
Okay.
blood a couple of times a year, and that brings my iron down. So certain things I can do quickly that are going to have a huge impact on my health. So, and then obviously the stress had a big role to play in my
Right.
adrenals being fried, but then also the mercury. Now, mercury is in seafood. Our fish
Hmm.
is unfortunately high in mercury. And I didn't eat a lot of fish while I was in the UK, but coming back to Australia, I started to put more fish into my diet because, hey, it's a super healthy food, right? It's full of good
And it's good.
nutrients, but it's also high in mercury. And if you don't detoxify mercury that well, you are going to store that mercury. Another big thing in the fitness industry is fish oils. Hey, you should be taking fish oils, anti-inflammatory, omega-3, awesome. Where does fish oil come from? Are those fish high in mercury? Chances are a lot of those fish oils that I was popping all the time were also containing mercury. Even though,
Yeah.
they're quality tested and we guarantee this and that, you don't know every batch has been tested. So probably the high consumption of fish oils, the high amount of stress, the mercury, the bad detoxification pathways, it was just an accumulating effect. And over time, it just sort of caught up with me to that state of burnout.
That's a real revelation as you're going through and you figure all that out. And so you mentioned that you've gone from this having chest pain and not feeling well, and within a few weeks you started feeling a lot better and getting back to yourself, which is amazing. I think the human body is an amazing thing that can adapt and adjust with just little tweaks often, and it can do some
Mm,
amazing things to help us in that path. So I'm really curious. You went from London where you had the gym, and I understand that, and then you came home, you got your health all together, and then you went and started a couple of organizations that you're focusing on training wise. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing? That I know that they one of them focuses a lot, I don't know if they both do, but one of them focuses a lot on men. So can you tell us
mm.
a little bit about those?
Yeah, so when I left London, a lot of the clients that I had wanted to keep training with me. So it was like, well, the only option you're going to have is online. So I started what I call the sustainable training method. And a lot of my clients just went online. So I write them online training programs. I've got clients all over the world, and we just stay in touch through an app. So I have the app and I program all their weeks, and they upload videos of them training, and I can give them feedback on the app. So that's guys and girls all over the world, pretty much focusing on strength training. So that's really the backbone of my business. But then, like I said, it got more for me into like, well, men's health. Like
Yeah.
men are suffering. A lot of men are out there are suffering. We see the suicide rates. We see the mental health rates. And we see men dying younger. We see just men struggling more in our society day to day. And for me, like I'm going through midlife myself right now. And there are a lot of challenges. I think as we get older, there's more responsibilities. There's more pressure, less time with our friends, less connection, easy to be disconnected. And that's having a huge impact. So I
Right.
was like, well, what can I do that's going to be able to help men in midlife? And that's when I started to put together or piece together Midlife Mavericks. And the idea around that wasn't necessarily the strength training and the physical aspect. It was the mental aspect of like, let's get men in a room and let's start having some deeper conversations, not just surface level conversations. Let's create space for men to talk about their relationships, their
Right.
struggles, their
Yeah.
successes, the hard times, the wins, and what they're worried about. What's their biggest fear? What are you scared of? Like, where are we creating spaces for men to have these conversations? The more I dived into it, the more, for me, I realized it was this transition between the warrior to the king. So these are different masculine archetypes. The warrior
Right.
is important to us. He gives us our drive. He's the guy that makes us go to university, to go get a career, to earn the money, to buy the house, to get the car, to chase the girl, to fight, to push, to keep going, to keep striving. The warrior is amazing, and we need that energy in our life. But at some point, the warrior gets tired, and we can't keep pushing and we can't keep striving because that's going to lead to burnout. and it's probably going to lead to an early death. And we need to step into a new role. We need to change our identity, and we step into the role of the king, which is more about leadership, more about responsibility, more about taking the foot off the gas and aligning our life with our values and what matters most to us. Because there are millions of opportunities in our life out there. We can chase whatever opportunity we want. But does that align with the man I want to become? And if we're just chasing all of these things, but we're not sitting back and really aligning ourselves with what's important, then we're only going to burn ourselves out and we're not going to get satisfaction and enjoyment out of our life. But how many times do men step back and think about that? What are your values, Mark? Who is the man you want to become, Mark? Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years from now? What's the biggest challenge stopping you from making those changes right now? If you don't make those changes, what might happen? Like, slow down, ask some of these powerful questions. Don't just sit in autopilot, taking each day as it comes, living Groundhog Day, going through the motions. Put your foot on
Yeah.
the brake, give yourself some space, slow down and ask these really powerful, insightful questions, and then make small shifts to move yourself in the direction that you want to go.
Yeah, I think it's important that we definitely ask those rhetorical, deep questions of ourselves. But I think it's even more important, you already mentioned this, to be able to make small adjustments as we go. It's not like you're gonna wake up and, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna be 100% the man that I've always wanted to be, even though the space is so far from here to there, but tomorrow I'm gonna be perfect.
Mm,
It's a matter of us just making progress and saying,
mm,
okay, here's where we're at. I'm going to make this small adjustment, this small step, and then I can make the next one and the next one. And it's that theory of aggregate gains, right? Where we go through that one little bit makes a little difference, and then adding that onto itself makes a huge difference in a not very long period of time.
yeah, for sure, mate. It's progress, not perfection, like you just said.
Right, right. So, so first of all, I'm going to ask this: how does somebody get a hold of you for these to be a part of these two programs? Because I think these are awesome, and I'd love to be able to have our listeners know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, so my website is tstmethod, or one word.com. And on there is the personal training aspect right now. And Midlife Mavericks at the moment is just on pause, but every now and again I'm running this like Warrior to King workshop, and that's sort of online at the moment. I hope to start doing it more face to face. I'm in the process of moving states in Australia, so once I get myself settled, I'll be looking at trying to get that back up and running again, whether it's online or hopefully face to face in the future. But yeah, tstmethod.com is the best place to go.
Okay, well that's good to know, and I would encourage everyone to kind of reach out, look at that, and see, because if you're able to do that and help even remotely like that, I mean, even when I was training people for years, you can be, and I never thought of course, back when I was doing it right after the last ice age, um, there wasn't all the technology that we have today that you
Mm.
could do that remotely. And I think it's awesome that you're able to create an app that does that to help so many people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
And
awesome, man. And
so,
it's just as a coach, being able to reach and work with so many people is just incredible as well. So it's nice to have an impact or feel that each day the work that I'm doing is making an impact.
right, right. And that's important for every man to be able to feel
Mm.
like that what we're doing is having an impact and making a difference in others. So we're getting close to being wrap up here. So I'm going to ask you the one question, Stretch, that we ask everybody. So, what is the one thing based off of our conversation today that our listeners can do to build deeper connections with those around them?
It's such a powerful question, and I could give lots of different answers. And this one might surprise you just a little bit, but I'm going to say strength is the gateway habit. And the more I've been working with men, the more I realize that sometimes we just need to get them moving physically and respecting their body and feeling good in themselves before they'll make the next step in whether it's connection, whether it's in their health, whether it's in their relationships, whatever it is. When we start training and we start lifting weights, I've seen the shift happen again and again and again. We
Yeah.
see some results. We see something change in ourselves, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, whether it's just confidence, whatever it is. And then we start to ask better questions. Well, if I'm lifting weights and I see this change, what happens if I change my diet? What happens if I
Right.
get better
Yep.
sleep?
Yeah.
What happens if I actually start to slow down and think about the relationship with my partner? Well, geez, it's been a while since I've spoken to that mate. Believe it or not, when we start training, things start to shift. And I've seen it so many times with so many different men and women as well. We just start asking better questions. And I think if we get confidence in ourselves and we start to see physical changes on the outside, we can start to also make changes on the inside. And this is where
Yeah.
I then start to add the layer of, okay, who is the man you want to become? And ask those deeper questions. But if I was to say one thing, I would say get to the gym and start picking up some weights, because it's going to be great for your health. It's going to be great for building muscle, your longevity, your confidence, your mood, but also your relationships. It's not selfish. It is actually leadership. And that's the first step of leadership. Because if you want to be a leader, you've got to be able to lead yourself first. So I
Mhm.
encourage everyone to be getting into the gym, because nothing negative can come from it and a lot of positive.
Yeah. If I go too long without going to the gym, and it doesn't have to be very long, my wife will be the first one that says, "You need to go work out."
Yeah, that's it. That's good to hear, mate.
Oh yeah. Nah, she's a driver because she knows everyone needs different things. And she knows
Yeah.
for me, the gym is a really a place of, sounds very cliche-ish to say, but almost a respite place for me, where I can just zone out everything and just do what I'm doing and enjoy the process. And so, and
Mm.
yeah, Stretch, thank you so much for coming on and sharing that. I would 100% agree with you. Getting to the gym, and it's kicking my fanny right now because it's been a bit since I was at the gym, and and so one thing I'll make a commitment on, I'm going to get back to the gym here when I get back from my trip. I'm not where I'm near a gym where I can do, but when I get back, I will definitely make sure, and I will report back to you that here I am, Stretch. I'm at the gym, just so you know.
You just made a great point there, and I just want to add to that, Mark, quickly. Is you talked about your partner there motivating you to go to the gym, but you also talked about checking in with me to say you'd been there.
Yeah,
Accountability is huge. Now, if
it
you're going to
is.
start to make changes in your life, who's going to hold you accountable? And if you tell someone that this is what you want to do and why you want to do it, that's huge, because that's going to help them keep you accountable as well. But also because you've told someone you're going to do that, you feel you've got to stay more accountable.
Now, yeah, now I have to. So not only have I committed to you, but every one of our
Yes,
listeners is going, all right, Mark, how's
exactly.
it going?
Yeah. I'm expecting big things now, Mark. I'm expecting big things.
Okay, I got 6 weeks, baby.
Beautiful.
So Stretch, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on, spending a few minutes with us today. I know we had a little bit of a struggle time zone wise back and forth. We're obviously on the opposite side of the world. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you taking a few. And those of you that are joining us on KneeToKnee, thank you for spending a few minutes and spending some time with Stretch and I. We enjoyed having you here. I love hearing comments and stuff. Any feedback we love having. And if there's any episodes that you would like to see more of, please let us know, because we're always looking to build onto our library and find some great guests like Stretch. So thank you again, everyone, and we will catch you on the next go around. Thanks.